Hello, I'm Janice Karin, Director of Policy, Technology, and Innovation at the Massachusetts Health Data Consortium, or MHDC. I run our Data Governance Collaborative, also known as the DGC. We start each of our weekly meetings with a series of industry quick updates to learn about new and proposed regulations, laws, standards, industry initiatives, and other activity. Join us for this week's updates. If you'll go to the first update. ASTP, sorry, I will eventually get used to that, has reopened USCDI Plus for Quality for public comment. They're calling this draft 1, although we actually, I guess the version that we commented on about a little bit over a year ago was kind of considered a preview draft. It was before they had the USCDI Plus portal open and hub open and all of that. So the comments for this version, which supposedly incorporates the comments that were received the first time, is October 15th. And some of what they've done is they've split the USCDI Plus for Quality into 2 use cases, what they're calling quality overarching and quality V1. And the difference between them is that quality overarching includes everything that has been identified as useful or necessary for quality measures. But quality V1 is a subset that is considered currently ready and available for use. So supported in EHRs or available supported code sets, etc. So while they were doing this work, some of what they were prioritizing was policy alignment across different quality reporting programs. Excuse me. Readiness for implementation. Again, that's that distinction they're making between the 2 use cases. Alignment with USCDI and other USCDI Plus data sets, and what was needed to calculate CMS ECQMs. So any questions so far? We have another page on this. All right, let's go to the rest of this, if you don't mind. So some of what they've done is they've added all USCDI version 4 data elements, as well as some version 5 stuff. So one of the things that we've looked at in the past that we found a bit confusing is the relationship between USCDI and USCDI Plus, because we were kind of expecting this to be the layer above the USCDI, and it doesn't look like, even though there hasn't been an official discussion of that, it doesn't look like they're framing it that way, because they again made an effort to move in the USCDI data elements. They also made a bunch of naming updates to align with USCDI and other USCDI Plus domains. That's one of the things that we commented on last time, so that there was a lot of disconnect where the same data element was being called different things in different places. So that's a good change in my mind. Adding other data elements that aren't part of USCDI that are relevant to quality measures, and specifically looking to add missing data elements that are part of CMS ECQMs and other quality programs. So some of the things that they're asking for comment on are whether there are other data elements that are needed for alignment across quality programs, which measure initiatives they should focus on when they're looking at USCDI Plus for quality. Are there other things that are in that quality overarching that are ready to be in the V1, the ready for use? And are there things in other USCDI Plus domains that should be part of this one? You can find the review notice. Sorry, go ahead. Did someone have a question? So you can find the review notice at the link, and that will also, there's a link there to actually look at the data set itself. Any questions? All right, I'm getting a lot of background noise, so if other folks wouldn't mind going on mute if you're not. All right, so the next we have the CMS Health Equity Confidential Post-Acute Care National Summary Report. That's a bit of a mouthful. So this is part of CMS's effort to expand the collection, reporting, and analysis of standardized data for post-acute care. And it combines summary results from two things. This is all 2023 data, the discharge to community documents, and Medicare spending per beneficiary confidential reports. So you can find both an executive summary and the full report at the links below, but some key takeaways, which were really presented in these general terms in the overview sections, were that in general, results were worse for dual eligible patients than patients who weren't dual eligible. Results were generally worse for non-white patients than white patients. The disparities, this one was kind of interesting. The disparities were larger in SNF settings than other settings they looked at. And the other thing that was interesting is that regardless of individual patients' race, in settings where there were more non-white, settings that had higher percentages of non-white patients saw worse results for all of their patients over settings that had fewer non-white patients in the setting. So it's not even just the race of the individual, it's not the race of the individual entirely, but there's actually a disparity for settings that are primarily non-white. So I thought that was really interesting. And as mentioned, you can find more information at those links. Any questions, thoughts, or comments there? All right, let's look at the next one then. So ASTP has released some updates to their Inferno test kits. These are FHIR test kits that can be used to test different APIs. So the test kit that's aligned with the certification for the standardized API for patient and populations was updated to support all of the components that are part of the final HTI1 rule. The US core test kit was updated to support US core version 7.0.0, which is the equivalent of USCDI version 4. And there's a new test kit for covering UDAP security, which tests conformance to the UDAP security version 1 IG. It covers things like registration and authentication and authorization for both consumer-facing and business-to-business use cases. So you can find more about Inferno and these and other available test kits at the link. Does anyone have any questions? All right, let's move on. So CISA has put out a new guidance document that's aimed at helping consumers, whether that's individuals or it's really probably a little bit more aimed at businesses, buying software, prioritize security, and evaluate the security of the products that are on offer. So in addition to talking about how to evaluate security, it talks about how to write, this is why it's more business talks about how to write security requirements into contracts and how to assess the security posture and outcomes once a product is in use. So you can, I'm not going to read every one of these, but you can see there's a list of things they recommend. They go into more detail about all of these, and this is just the subset of what they recommend. But it's basically meant to help you figure out whether software vendors that you're dealing with are sufficiently security conscious and make sure that you are covering your basis around security when you use, buy, and evaluate their software. So any questions about that? All right, let's move on. So MIT CSAIL has put out a new public AI risk repository, and it has 3 components. There's the AI risk database, which has over 700 risks that are related to 43 existing frameworks that references back to those frameworks. There's also a causal taxonomy of AI risks that classifies how, when, and why risks occur. And then the domain taxonomy, I can speak English, which classifies risks by the type of risk they are. So you can look at all of the risks that are related to misinformation, all of the risks that are related to some other area. And so there's 7 top-level domains and 23 subdomains. So this is what's really interesting is that you can access all of this online, or you can actually copy a full version of the AI risk database wherever you'd like to use it locally. And you can use each of these separately. You can use them together. And on the website, in addition to talking more about each of these three elements, there's a FAQ, there's potential use cases specific to policy research in an industry. They actually split industry into two different groups. But it's a really interesting. If you're interested in AI risk, I recommend poking around, and you can find it at the link on the slide. Any questions or thoughts or comments there? All right, let's go to the next slide then. So the Office of Minority Health has released something called the Disparities Impact Statement. And this is actually a worksheet that is they're hoping will promote health equity across different areas by identifying and addressing disparities. So the 5 steps that are part of the worksheet are identifying the health disparities in affected populations, defining your improvement goals, establishing a strategy, determining how to implement that strategy, and then monitoring and evaluating progress. Seems pretty straightforward. But what's interesting about this is this really is a worksheet. So it's basically, they're open-ended questions where they're asking you to write in your answers for these. And then at the end, there's an action plan template for each area that you talk about, for each identified goal, where you can kind of outline the entire plan for that goal. And I believe for certain, they made a mention towards the end on the under the action plan that some certain organizations that go to the point of having full action plans may be eligible for certain types of funding. I make no promises about what the requirements are for that, but it is something that it was sort of a casual mention without details that was part of the on the action plan page. So presumably, if you're interested in following up on that, that's something you could find more information about at OMH. So any questions or thoughts or comments there? All right, if you'll go to the next page, I believe that was the last update. So I hope you learned a lot from our quick updates. If you're interested in finding out more about the DGC and its other activities, email me at dgc@myhealthdata.org. That email address is also on the screen.